Welcome to Door2Door Insider, where we take a deep dive into the mindset, the why, and the how of the industry's top entrepreneurs, leaders, recruiters, and salespeople. We are the Door2Door Nation. Here is your host, Lee Barber. Let's go.
All right, gang. Welcome to Door2Door Insider, Episode 9, Season 2. Today we have special guest, Joey Wier. Joey has been in solar for 2.5 years. He started with Legacy and then went to Sunder. He did that for about 4 months. And then I met Joey back in December of 2019, and Joey's been with me here in the Vegas office ever since. Joey's year-to-date installs are at 93 installs. Joey has sold 112 accounts this year with only 5 cancels. And some of the 112 sold are still in the pipeline. So Joey, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me, Lee.
Yeah.
Pinch myself. Is this real?
This is real, man. So, you know, I had Mara on a couple episodes ago, and my goal with the podcast is to bring value to all of our listeners. And I think, you know, most of us, when we start in the industry, start wanting to be kind of where you're at or where I'm at or where Seth's at.
Yeah.
And you have a really interesting path to progression. And one of the things that I wanted to call out just from our introduction was that in the division and at Legacy, you have some of, if not the highest sit to close to install ratios. And with 112 deals being sold and only 5 cancels, that's just amazing. And so I wanted to get a little bit of your backstory, but I also want our listeners to hear your path to progression, how you've gotten to where you are, and, you know, what makes you such an incredible salesman. I know a lot of this, but I think getting some of this information out to our listeners will be a great help. So again, thanks for coming on, Joe.
Yep. Thanks for having me. And, you know, I feel like the biggest thing is just kind of what we were touching on today. You know, you just did a really good core for everybody. And it's just literally just being focused on becoming the best where you are, almost to the point of obsession. And leading to kind of like my backstory. I mean, everything I've ever been into, I've been obsessed, you know, since I was a kid. Like, you had me on the soccer field. My dad tried to put me in soccer. I'm out there thinking about Power Rangers. It's all I want to do. I'm like out there doing kicks. Yeah. It's like, pay attention to the ball. Nope.
Joey's a
not
Power
doing
Ranger.
it. Yep. Skateboarding, whatever I've been into, you know, it's just my life.
Yep.
And so
I know quite a bit about your story, but let's start there. So what is your family, just briefly, we'll touch on some of your younger childhood. What does your family look like growing up, and what are those early years for you, kind of teen and preteen and teen?
Sure. So we moved here from Michigan, Lansing, Michigan, shout out, when I was 7. My mom was a waitress at Cracker Barrel.
Okay.
And my dad was an aspiring magician.
Okay.
And he would DJ the clubs around Michigan.
So
and he was kind of a big deal out there.
Magician /
yeah.
DJ.
Yeah, exactly.
I love
and
it.
He'd do some clown stuff too. Ding Dong the Clown.
Okay.
So basically, you know, my dad started coming out here for like magic conventions, and he won some money. He hit like a royal flush out here. And he tells me all the time that was kind of like his thought process. Like, boom, I hit a royal flush. Like, I won 1,000. That was a lot of money to me at the time. And I was on this trip. Vegas is awesome. We got to move out here. Like, I'm stuck in this small town. And he always had big aspirations to be like a famous magician, you know? And he was popular, but just couldn't really grow there. So that's what brought us to Vegas originally. Crazy story. I don't know.
Yeah. So what is it like when you get to Vegas? So just so you know, Joey, the listeners love crazy stories.
Okay. So, man, I could go so deep. I don't want to get carried away here, but basically we moved here, and for me, I'm like a Midwestern kid. I got a mullet, like all the kids with mullets now. I originated that shit. So I had
you're the mullet OG.
Yeah. So I had a mullet, you know.
I don't know if that's something you, I guess.
Yeah,
so.
I was not cool. And I get here, and all these Vegas kids in the neighborhood we move into this like, you know, like middle class neighborhood. My parents bought their first house. They were young when they had me and my brother. So I was 7, he was like 4. We move here, they get their first house. My mom's got her first like graveyard waitress job at the Gold Coast, and my dad's starting to, book opening gigs and birthday parties, stuff like that. Meanwhile, my dad had kind of started another relationship on the side, and his partner had moved out here with us. And my mom kind of didn't know what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad's a alcoholic, and ended up relapsing shortly after we moved out here. He had like 5 years clean. He relapsed, and it was a mess. They divorced, they split. He went and moved in over there. My mom got remarried, and they never went to court. They never had like this custody battle. My mom's an amazing woman, so they kind of ended it peacefully.
Yeah, let me ask you. Up. So, it's interesting because the further I get in my life, the more to become a better human being myself. The thing that I've learned is I have to have a better interpersonal relationship with me, and a lot of that has to do with how I grew up and my personal life traumas and the experiences that I had. How I decipher information in today's world has a lot to do with how I learned information in yesterday's world. So what was that experience like for you as a child, and how do you think that impacted you in your teen years?
So, I mean, when they split up, and I realized that Greg, was my dad's partner.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a shock, and he tried to like hide it from me.
Yeah.
But I knew what was going on. Like,
why
are you guys
sleeping together?
Yeah. Why are you guys sleeping together?
Yeah.
And, I remember, but Greg really was like, he was kind of holding it together. He had the job, he had things going on. My dad started driving a cab, and, just partying. It was just a party over there. And then I had some normalcy. My mom quickly got remarried to Victor. Great guy. They're still together 20 years. And, Victor moved in, and he never tried to be like a dad. He was more of like a friend. He was always supportive and
mentor.
So overall, it wasn't like I just stayed out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
I started making friends.
Mm-hmm.
I found skateboarding,
spray paint. You do some spray paint.
Yeah, that was later on. But I found skateboarding, and then I found like punk rock music, just anything like rebellious that was like against everything. And I think a lot of that's kind of sprouted from that like angst at home of just things not being okay. I went and sought it with like friends and people, outside, and I just started making some like really close friends and some bonds, and I just wanted to be out with my friends all the time, and that was okay. Nobody was kind of looking. I was just out. Next thing you know, I'm hanging with the older kids. They always seemed to like just like me. After I cut the mullet and kind of started going.
Nobody's hanging out with the mullet.
Yeah. But I cut the mullet and I became kind of cool, I guess. So I made some friends, and overall, I mean, of course, like it was like no secret what was going on over at like my dad's place on the weekends. Like it was, Speedo parties in the backyard. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It wasn't
it probably was.
It was.
So, but it's interesting because you hear these, and thank you for being vulnerable, with the listeners, because you hear these, and it's just interesting to me to know the person that you are today. And I've heard some of these stories before, and it is interesting hopefully it's interesting for the listeners, because you see some of these traumas that, at the time that they're happening, just kind of seem normal as a young person. But you start to see them manifest in our behaviors in kind of obscure ways, hanging with the wrong friends, making the wrong decisions, because, these things are painful and they are impactful when they're happening, and they can be confusing when you're young. There's absolutely nothing wrong with, being gay or being straight or any of those things. But when your parents break up and you're trying to deal with your dad going into a situation like that, obviously it causes trauma, and then you start, acting out. So what do the rest of the teenage years look like for you?
Man, it wasn't even like, I didn't mind that. Like I was okay with that, which is like, there was no hard feelings about him being happy. I've always wanted him to be happy. Now he's married to a woman, great woman.
Yeah.
He's been through a lot of stuff. Me and my dad are close today, but his alcoholism,
Was the
will
bad part.
tear apart the family. And I remember just seeing it progress and progress and thinking, I will never be like this,
Yeah.
There's no way. And slowly but surely, I found alcohol and started smoking a little weed and this and that. And it was like, at first it was fun and very quickly became like fun with problems.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad ended up getting sober when I was 14. I came home and he's been up all night since work drinking. It's 2:00 in the afternoon. I get home from school and he's just like in rare form. Like he's usually wasted, but he was like real bad. And I was like, I can't let you go pick up Jake, my brother, from school. I went out and rode my bike up to get Jake. I'm like, oh, it's a show. Like, I don't know. So my mom got off work and she would always come pick us up. I was probably 13 and she gets there and she's just like, calls his mom, my grandma, and kind of tells him like, we need to get him out there. We need to get him out to Michigan to just kind of detox and, get out of here. And she told him, you'll never see these boys again if you don't get it together. And, he was open with me that later on that like that day he had a gun and he was going to kill himself. And he saw a Bible that his sister, my Aunt Julie, left like on our little credenza.
Yep.
And he saw it and it just reminded him like, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot. He went out to Michigan for a month and detoxed and got a good routine going with recovery. And by that time I was already smoking weed every day, starting to, just really rebel.
Almost go down the same path.
And all of a sudden he hadn't been a parent. He hadn't been there. My mom was kind of like just loose. She didn't really care too much and didn't really see what was going on. And by the time he came back and he was, trying to get sober and get his life together and really making some serious changes, it was too late. I was off the deep end. So we started butting heads real bad.
That's an interesting story. I mean, I've heard that. My life was different. My mom was in alcoholism, but she was my road dog, right? She just kind of drugged me around everywhere with her, and I love my mom, but definitely I make different parenting choices now. It's interesting how your story is reflective of others that I've heard like that. So you start to get into this now, and then where does that road take you in your mid to late teenage years?
So so quickly it starts turning to problems, and now my dad, all of a sudden he's been kind of adamantly atheist, if you find, he'd kind of say like, I want you to party with me. I want to be your road dog type things when he was drunk. And now all of a sudden we're going to church on Sunday. He's trying to like get a family dynamic going.
Yeah.
So, pretty much like by like 15, I start getting caught, hate to say it, but like stealing from my mom or stealing from him. And, they're drug testing me and they're finding out like, oh man, he's got this stuff in his system. And like, he's like desperate because my dad went to like prison his first year out of high school. So he's just like, man, he's going to do the same thing. So he was like dying to like save me. But like, I didn't see it like that.
The damage had been done.
I thought he was just trying to kill my good time. And I was trying to have fun. I'm a kid, this is normal that I drink and hang out with my friends and stay out. So he tried to ground me for life. Like you're not allowed to do anything unless I talk to their parents and this and that. And for good reason, I'd be doing the same thing now that I have a daughter.
Yeah.
But I'm sneaking out the window as soon as they're in bed and I'm out, and every 2 or 3 weeks he catches me and I run away. I'm not coming home. Then I feel bad because I love my mom.
Yeah.
So I'm not living with you. I'll live with mom, just trying to negotiate.
Just kind of a tortured teenage. Yeah.
Yeah. So finally I kind of got my way and he let me just go stay with mom. And, 3-4 months into that, she's just kind of lenient. She doesn't want to, she knows I'm a kid and like she partied when she was a kid. And like, she just kind of sees it like I got to go through my phase, but she didn't know the level of like criminality that I'm on at this point. My whole life is a lie and my whole life's just criminal, So I end up catching my first felony, junior year of high school.
Is this the helicopter story?
No.
Oh, there's another one.
Yeah. So, I just I had got so addicted to pills that like I needed them. So I made the guy who used to give me a ride to school, my boy Beans.
Good old Beans, baby.
Go pick up these pills.
Wonder where Beans is at now.
I don't know.
He ain't selling solar.
No, I don't know where Beans is, but so, yeah, we smoked a blunt in the car.
Yeah.
And he's like, "We're ditching." I'm like, "No, I got to go to school." And I'm like 30 minutes late. And I came in there smelling like weed with all these pills on me now. Yeah. They pulled me out of class.
Well, you got popped at school
so dumb.
with a pocket full of pills.
Mm-hmm.
Not smart.
Yep. So that was my first intro. My mom picks me up and she's just slapping me in the parking lot. Like, how could you do this?
Of course.
She just got back from, my grandma had passed away and she just got back from the funeral. It's one of those memories I think back on like, man,
yeah,
it was a bad situation. She was just like, called my dad right away, let him know. Like, she hates to say like, you're right, obviously, because like her and my dad are like fighting over me. And that night I went to my first meeting. I was like 16. I went to my first AA meeting with this guy I'd met.
You went to your first AA meeting when you were 16?
Yeah. And I looked around and I'm like, man, one day I'm probably going to end up here, but that day is not today. But no, actually I was like so scared of this trouble I was in. I was like, never doing this again. I'm going to get clean right here. Yeah. It's over. You know, like I was scared. This is my first real consequences and it flipped my life upside down. And I'm just like, oh my God. Like,
well, you know what I love about this is, I've had between the old show, Door2Door, the Door Knocker with Zach, and this show, I've had the opportunity to interview just so many people from such varying different backgrounds and walks of life. And, and I love hearing these stories because, whether you grew up in the LDS church and you had, a very normal childhood, but there's a lot of diversities there too, right? People suffer through, all forms of humanity, no matter where they are. And you went in a mission and then you came to Doors, or you grew up more like we grew up. This industry is it's self-made, and the reason I love hearing these stories is because it's just so empowering to know that no matter what walk of life, no matter how you grew up, no matter what your education is, no matter, what gender you are, no matter what race you are, no matter what age you are, that your past doesn't define you. And you can come in here and make yourself, whether you had a difficult childhood or an easy childhood, doors are doors, and they're going to treat you how doors treat people. So I love hearing this story because it just shows what kind of adversity you came through. So there you are, getting popped for the pills. Mm-hmm. Mom doesn't know what to do. And now what happens to Joey?
So this turns into like this thing where I notice, okay, if I go to these meetings and I go to church, my dad seems to be cool about it. Yeah. Right. And I'm like, at first, I'm in all this trouble. I'm expelled from school. Mm-hmm. I'm just kind of like not allowed to see my girlfriend or my friends. Like I'm grounded. So I'm like, okay, it gives me a chance to get out. I kind of like these people. Like the people in recovery are good people, and like they're like me. I don't realize that yet, but they're like understanding and I like talking to them. So I'm like, I'm going to give this a shot. Right. Mm-hmm. So I'm expelled for like a week and then they put you in like, what's the school called? Like prison for kids.
Yeah, well, we just like, call it prison for kids. Yeah. The bad kids school. I
go to the bad kids school. And
to me, it was called juvie. But...
Yeah, it's not juvie. It's like when you get kicked out of regular school and you have to go to behavioral school. Yeah. And it's literally like all the criminal ass kids are together.
Which is terrible.
It's a bad idea. Worst place to put. Look. Yeah. So I'm like I'm a week away from drugs. I'm like had went through the detox because I was already physically addicted. I was doing these pills every day. Xanax and opiates and stuff. It's bad, it's an epidemic. Like the kids, this is in school, but
it is bad.
Yeah, I'm doing it and I'm dealing it and all that stuff. So I'm like totally, my life is flipped upside down. I'm going to get it together. I'm a week in and I get on the school bus and everybody's, passing around drugs.
Doing the drugs.
And I'm like, I'm not going to do it.
That's who buys all the drugs, is all the bad kids.
Yeah. So I get through the first day. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'm starting to like get acclimated to the whole, they check everything when you walk in, make you take pat you down. The next day, I'm like, all right, let me take one, just like nothing. It was like some kid had like a diet pill,
Sure.
like with the amphetamine, like diet pills. I was like, I'll take it.
Adderall?
Yeah. And I was like, man, I can focus for the first time ever.
This
I
is
can
amazing.
actually pay attention to the teacher, because I was like a straight D and F. Like, they tried to hold me back in first grade. Like,
Shout out Adderall.
I could literally not focus, and I probably should have got on Adderall, but you know, my parents didn't want to prescribe me. I'm sure I have ADD, but I'm happy I never got hooked on it, because I get addicted to literally everything.
Me too.
I got addicted to Adderall after that, but I got addicted to like everything. So now it gets real bad. So now, so now this is the
just
start.
When you thought it couldn't get worse.
So I take a couple. I'm like, I got away with it. Went to my little AA meeting that night. You know, I'm like, yep, I'm not going to tell anybody, because then I'm going to get in trouble. And it just starts from there, you know? Yeah. So now I'm just like back on this cycle. But now, you know, I've told everybody that I'm going to get clean, and they're kind of like starting to like be proud of me after like a month or two.
Yeah, now you're just one big lie.
And the lie just builds.
And you're young. You don't know what to do.
The lie, long story short, the lie builds and builds and builds to the point you can't hide it. No. Everybody knows.
Yep.
So it's like intervention.
Yep.
You know, and my family interventioned me. And, you know, I had a couple jobs during this time, and both I got fired for suspicious reasons.
How old were you around this time?
Like 16, 17.
Yep.
And so I got fired from like the 2 first jobs I ever had. They're all proud of me. I get fired in like 2 weeks. Once Subway, I was so messed up, I forgot to put a glove on. And then everybody's mad I'm making their sandwich without gloves.
Yeah.
And the next one, the pizza place fired me. And then my dad's friend gives me a job cleaning windows, and he goes to Florida and lets me run his business. Horrible idea. He came back expecting half the money for the jobs, and it was all gone. It was spent, you know? So it's like everybody just kind of like gathered around me. I come home and they're like, you know, things aren't adding up.
Yeah.
And the night before, this is important. So the night before, it had just got to the point where it had just, these lies had been building and building and building. And I couldn't like stand living this lie anymore. Nobody knew me. And I just hit my knees and was just like, God, help me. I don't know what to do, but help me. And I didn't know how I was going to stop or ever tell the truth about this stuff. It seemed like the biggest deal. And like the next day intervention, and I told the truth, and the truth sets you free, you know? So I'm in my senior year of high school. I end up, you know, telling them the truth. And all of a sudden I'm like, for real, went through the detox, and for real started walking through those same hallways that I was, you know, had all my friends, and telling them like, look, I'm staying sober. I'm doing this.
Well, what's interesting to me here too, and you know, I know we have a great diversity of listeners, and most, if not all, of our listeners, you know, probably have a friend or family member or themselves that have gone through either alcoholism, drug addiction. I mean, people get it. You know, they say marijuana is not addicting, but I know I've known people that are absolutely addicted to marijuana. It's just the behavior of getting high. So most of the listeners have somebody in their family. And it's always interesting for me to hear these stories with people, you know, I don't know the exact statistics, so I'm not going to spit them out, but I know that it's a very small amount of the population that lives in addictive behaviors that gets out of it and lives clean long term. It's the smallest amount, maybe 5%. The majority of people stay doing what they're doing for a really long time. And it's just always, I love it in our industry because, you know, I'm one of us. You know, I had a troubled youth, but just the point that, you know, they're not just about the industry, but that there is hope, you know, for people like us. And we've all had people that, you know, your parents didn't give up on you. And then, you know, long term, we have people who suffer through more of that. But, you know, just to shout out that there is hope for people who want it, but you can never want it more than they want it. They have to want it more than anybody wants it to change. And then, you know, the long term is when I look at people who are in recovery, like you, myself, a lot of the people that we know, it's just amazing to hear who somebody was and then to look at who they've become, especially in a case like yours, where now you're, you know, you have a lot of influence in a really healthy way with a lot of the people on your team. And a lot of your experiences gave you grit and fortitude and tenacity. You know, you're not a quitter. You know, and a lot of these experiences built up to that, but sometimes going through these really painful experiences is what makes you the person that you are today. I think it was Casey Baugh that said, I think, it was one of the podcasts, but they say if doors are the hardest thing that you've ever done in your life,
You're done.
You're done. Doors are going to kick your teeth in.
It's true.
But if you've had harder experiences and doors are not. So a lot of this is just the fortification, right? Is the stick in the fire that makes the person that can handle the industry. Because, I loved what Keaton Mott said on the last, is like, people make this out to be hard. Well, it's hard for people that it's hard for.
Yeah.
It's impossible for people that it's impossible for. But for guys like us, we grasp onto this thing. And part of that's because of who we were in our past.
Yeah. And I feel like, great point. And I feel like fear is obviously something everybody copes with. Like, so this fear that's inside all of us, the things I was doing and the areas that I aspired to be like a leader in then, like it's crazy to think, but like, you touched on the spray paint thing, like graffiti is like a subculture.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like my life. I had dedicated myself to like, I was really good at art,
mm-hmm.
and I had earned respect of like the wrong people,
Mm-hmm.
but because I was very talented at that. And so
you were seeking approval,
yeah,
right?
and I was
and
seeking
you wanted to fit. You want to fit in too,
right? So I just ended up, going down that path. But to the whole thing about that story about like getting sober for the first time at 17 is like, all of a sudden, like, I didn't know what my problem was. I was just fighting to protect this like addiction, like whatever I can do to make this work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care about anything else. And all of a sudden now it's like, I haven't paid attention in school up to this point. Like, I haven't been paying attention to like anything going on
kind
in
of life.
Yeah,
like
I hadn't
real
been,
life.
Yeah, I hadn't had a job. They wouldn't let me. My parents were like, "You're crazy. We're not going to let them get a permit or a
Mm-hmm.
license." And all of a sudden, like, they start watching me and like watching my feet, and they can see like, oh man.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing you know, it's like I'm putting days together. I'm telling the truth. Like,
Mm-hmm.
these things are starting to change. They let me. I didn't know what I was going to do when I graduated high school, but that was like my first like A and B report card. Senior year last somehow I graduated, and my mom helped me out get my first busboy job, which I thought was like, I was making like $50-$60 a day in tips,
Oh, you're
plus
killing it.
hourly. And then my stepdad let me finance his truck for his Forerunner for $5,000. And I was like, dude, I got a car, I got a job, like things are working out. All of a sudden I read The Secret for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So this is when I started like the personal development. Was I get sober.
How old are you?
Like 17, 18, turning 18. And I find The Secret on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, I watched it. And I remember writing down like what I wanted. I wanted a Cadillac DeVille with rims, like a 2002. I was like being kind of realistic. I wanted like a $10 plus an hour job.
Yeah.
I wanted to like be able to, take my friends places instead of them driving me around all the time. Like all this stuff. Like I wanted to listen to like the music I was listening to in my headphones. I would think about myself driving in this car.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like a few months later, after watching this, I got this busboy job. I got a car. I got 22s. I got all this stuff. I'm like, man, like it's starting to, like I'm seeing it. I'm putting in the action, but it's like things are just coming together. And I'm like, how could this ever happen? And now the window cleaning company that I stole the money from, I'm working for him for free to like pay him back, while I'm working at the restaurant, trying to make my amends to him. And next thing you know, he's made me a partner in the business, and I'm really like running the business now because he had moved out to Florida, and I'm kind of like helping him run the business and then working in the restaurant at night. And I'm just like learning hard work, and starting to see like, dang, like I was 18, I moved out, got my own apartment, got things going, and I was just like doing life.
Well, so listen, this is something, my daughter in California is 22, Alexis, beautiful, talented young woman who I didn't have the opportunity to raise. Her mom did it because I was not a great human. Her mom did a great job. But now I am blessed enough to have worked my way back into her life, and we have an amazing relationship. She's just finishing college. And one of the things that I really push onto her as my child is the same thing that I push onto the team, is the power in writing down your goals and the power of attraction. And so some of the things that I talked about in correlation today is, the power of attraction for me has been so relentless in my life that I'm forced to believe it as a fact. The things that I write down, the things that I think are naturally the things that I have manifested. And it has happened so many times again and again and again and again and again that I'm forced to believe that it's true. And it's interesting because a few months ago, my daughter is graduating with degree in business with an under in marketing. And I'm like,
That's awesome.
what do you want to do? And she's like, I don't know. Where are you going to work? I don't know. And so I said, I want you to write down how much money you want to make in a year. And then I want you to write down how much money you want to make in 5 years, how much money you want to make in 10 years. And then I want you to write down what job you want. And then I want you to write down what companies have that job. And then now those are the companies that I only want you to apply for. And so she started doing those things, and like some of that stuff is already starting to manifest for her. And it's really interesting to hear that you went through some of that. And it's just a shout out to gaining knowledge through books as early or as old as you can. Just the only too late time to start is never. Start now, and write down your stuff. So that's a really cool lesson that you learned early.
Yeah, and then so it opened up the personal development realm, and now I'm like, listen, like Tony Robbins, and I'm, find Robert Kiyosaki. I never knew anything about money. I never had more money than I needed for that day. It was like going and going, and now I'm starting to like be responsible, and it's becoming important to me. I like was trying to make up for lost time. So, I'm helping, other people get sober now. I'm doing my thing. We got the apartment. I got the girl. Things are going okay. And I get this thing in my mind, like I was just young. Now it's going to be okay. So next thing you know, it's
you were using because you were young, drinking because you were young,
exactly,
having fun because you were young. It wasn't because you had a problem,
right?
It's because you were young.
And I've done all this. Look at what I've done. It's all.
I'm the master of the universe now.
Yeah. So I have
22s.
Yeah.
I got rims.
So I'm like, I got to go visit my boys and show them how good I'm doing. It's been a while.
I got to go show off.
I had slowly drifted away from like recovery.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, I need to go see them. I haven't seen them in a while.
Yep.
And they're doing fine. You know what I mean? It's not, their life isn't in shambles. They're still hustling. They got money. Things are going good. So it's almost like attractive to me. So I don't do anything right away. But next thing you know, I find myself right back in it again. After like 2.5 years of like building my life up, I figure I'll be fine. I'm older now.
So how old were you when you went back in?
19.
Okay, got it.
So now it starts this cycle for a couple years of just like, I was like, if it gets bad, I know where to go. But it got bad and I couldn't stop. And it had progressed.
Yeah.
And so I end up getting in a lot of trouble, and just like, I didn't lose everything though. Like I was able to somehow maintain this job and like kind of make it work. So, it was strange that it ended up, but all the stuff, like all the personal development stuff, like all this person I wanted to be, and like all these things, all this knowledge I had gained, I couldn't act on any of it. When any of that stuff, like it just compromises my integrity, compromises everything like that was positive, till I just am the shell of a person. I don't want to look at myself in the mirror, and it just gets dark, and that's not everybody's case. Some people can just be a great person and casually do this stuff, but I know that's not me. So it was a very important time from like 19 to 21 for this to get from my head to my heart. And, long story short, I had fell into like this full blown like addict, like alcoholic again, of course. And it was just like, I could tell you all kinds of crazy stories, but memorably, like I was obsessed with the law of attraction still, because this had been working in my life, and I'm starting to see things happen even with all this going on. And I'm somehow maintaining some kind of level of what I thought was financial success, getting in better restaurants, making a little bit more money and this and that. And next thing you know, the law of attraction like flipped. And now I'm like going nuts, like negative, and just things are going wrong. And long story short, it just ended. I want to get past this story, but it's like,
is this the helicopters? We got to hear the helicopter story.
So basically, like,
if it involves the helicopter, I want to hear it.
Okay. So the helicopter story goes like this.
Well, because this was, and I joke, but not really, because this was kind of the beginning of the end for you, right?
Right.
Of the new beginning.
Yeah. This is the beginning of the progression to where we are now.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to kind of touch on that, because that was when I was introduced to personal development pretty much from like 18. After I turned 18, like I knew that I tried a couple CSN classes. My parents weren't going to pay for college. Nobody had money to like, they were allocating that towards my brother as they should have. He was valedictorian,
Yeah.
you know, same background. He was valedictorian, dean's list, law magnet program, like all that money. They didn't have much, but it was going to go towards helping him, which it should have. And I was like, that school isn't for me. I'm going to be in business. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to work for somebody else forever. So anyway, I'm like doing this, like I'm just paying one credit card with the other and trying to like maintain some.
You're broke and busted.
I'm broke and busted, and I'm like so addicted. I'm
well, you're broke and busted mentally, spiritually, and financially.
Oh yeah, it was bad. And I'm just like at war with everyone trying to keep this thing going. Cause like, I'm not going to lie about it. I'm like unapologetically me, but it's like, you can't have anybody that cares about you.
Anybody who says I'm unapologetically me, even in the moment, I'm like, generally they're kind of an asshole, or there's something wrong with them.
Just
like,
such an asshole. I
don't want to. If you have to apologize, if you're unapologetically you, I probably don't want to know you.
Yeah. So my parents had just kind of got to the point that they're like, you know, they had kind of distanced themselves with love. Everybody, like the only person who was close to me, which was my ex at the time, we would fight every night because every night it was the same Groundhog Day, and I'd just keep doing it. So I end up like getting this job, good job again. I talked my way into it. First day off they give me, I go downtown. I start a fight on purpose, like with my ex, to like turn my phone off and just stay out all night. And, you know, I'm painting a mural down there, you know, that I was commissioned to do, get too drunk. It looks horrible, you know, so I'm trying to fix it. You know, this is from the first Friday before. I'm down there trying to fix it. And there's this spoken word like poetry jam going over the wall. It's right here next to our office. It used to be Cornerstone Art Gallery. And the place next door, that's the hairdressers and stuff. They have like spoken word poetry jams. So every time I'm down here, I think of this night. And so I'm getting drinks over the wall, drinking, and have my pill guy stop by. And I'm just like absolutely annihilated.
Some Xanax, or what'd you get?
Yeah, Xanax and drinking. And
There's nothing like Xanax and alcohol to make you have a really bad night.
Oh, yeah, that's the perfect combination. So this girl who's running that event is like, I'm over there trying to be everybody's best friend, you know? And she's like, let me take you home. Like, I know the type because now that I'm sober, I like see this lush who's like this. And she's like, let me take you home. Like, I'll drive you. And I'm like, okay. So she starts driving me home in my car. And I'm like, just drop me off downtown. I'm good. I'm going to keep it going. I'm meeting up with somebody. My phone's dead, you know?
Whatever.
Yeah, I get out of the car. I throw my hood on, you know, and, you know, I'm just see this cop drive by. And I remember getting kind of like paranoid. Like, maybe I should just drive myself home instantly. As soon as she dropped me off, I could have just kept driving home with her. But I get in my car. I back out of the spot. They light me up right away. Apparently, I matched the description of a gun suspect. But I'm thinking, like, for whatever reason in my head, I'm like, I'm taking off. I'm not pulling over. So I get on the freeway. I'm going like 140. I'm like taking this thing to the governor. Thank God I didn't kill anybody, you know, and I made it alive. But I thought I lost him. So I'm driving home. I'm like, yeah. So I drive up to this house we're renting in Summerlin. I pull into the gate. It's like a gated community and stuff. And like, I'm like, man, I don't think my ID's like tracked to another address. They won't even know where I'm at. I'm going to park my car in the garage and go to sleep. I'll deal with this tomorrow. I'll say my car got stolen. I'm thinking of the story. I don't even realize the helicopter is like on top of me, like talking to me out of the sky. Next thing you know, every squad car pulls up in front of the house. You know, I tried to like back up. I live on this dead end cul-de-sac. I try to back up. I smash into the roll cage and I'm just like, fuck, you know, I just rolled out, laid on the ground because they wanted to shoot me, of course, you know. I just rolled out, laid on the ground, put my hands behind my back. They're like, what are you thinking, you know? And I'm just like, I don't know. And this is the beginning of like, you know, now I got to face myself. All of a sudden it's like an abrupt stop to this life. You know, I didn't know how to stop. And this is how we usually end up coming to a stop. It has to be severe
jails, institutions, and death.
Yep. And I'm just in the holding cell, you know, and booking and just shaking it out and facing the reality. Like, man, like I didn't realize the severity, but like my dad wouldn't answer. You know, my mom answered, but she like nobody, I had the money for bail and nobody wanted to bail me out. That's how you know, like, they're like, we know you're safe. And I had to kick. And that was the start. You know, I've been sober ever since. That was March 10th of 2014.
So you've been sober since 2014.
Mm-hmm.
A few things from that. First of all, one of my takeaways from that is that, you know, the moment that somebody is shown the light, it's really hard to take that light away from them. And whether that's, you know, you read Think and Grow Rich, the moment you start to understand the power of manifestation and self-belief systems, it's really hard to forget those things. And then also those things really only work with a person who's living a principled life. You know, when you kind of go into the other direction, you start using that law of attraction for, you know, negative. And you can have the law of attraction any way you want it. You can get it in the positive or the negative. And then, you know, on some of the times when I have folks like us on the show, we talk about, you know, AA and some of these meetings, and that can sound foreign to some of the guests, but what I have found is that there are traits that we all share as human beings. And, you know, we're all kind of screwed up in some kind of way, whether it's a body image thing or traumatic parent experiences that didn't have to do with alcoholism. It was just a, you know, traumatic, an abusive father or mother, or, you know, life is just traumatic. It just can be, right? There's tough stuff. And the one thing that, you know, the programs that we go to, and I actually also go to, you know, we had Deshaun Bryant from Roof Hustlers in here. It was really cool for me to hear him talk about how he becomes a better person. And the ways that he actively does that is through therapy. And I go to therapy, and it's not because I'm crazy. It's because, you know, I have a family to lead and a team to lead. And the reason that I work on myself on a constant basis is because I want to become a better leader and influence on the people in my life. And the best way to do that is for me to have an in-depth understanding of who I am as a human being. So therefore, I try to get better. And a lot of what we talk about on this show when we have guests like us on is the programs. But what you get from the programs is they make you face yourself in a way that says, hey, listen, you need to have accountability for your actions. You need to take accountability for who you are. You need to take account and responsibility for the way that you've treated people. You need to look at treating people and facing people in a different way. Sometimes we're the lucky ones, you know, even though we suffer from alcoholism or addiction, some of the things that we get from these programs are things that I see people in day-to-day society not have, where they're not going to therapy, where they're not working on themselves, and they just kind of get these sick, I don't know if sick's the right word, just bad personality traits that they never seem to face or change in any way, and they just go on through life treating people like that. So the really cool thing for us, and hearing a story like this, it just makes me think of the evolution of the human. And, you know, you throw in some bad childhood experiences with alcoholism that give you some trauma, you turn into exactly an alcoholic. I have a similar story to that.
Yeah.
Then at some point you start to find, you know, Think and Grow Rich and the power of manifestation. And then through programming, AA, and some of these other programs, start to learn some different self-behaviors. And so here we are in 2014, we're sober. What were you doing when you got sober?
So I eventually convinced somebody to get the bail money I had and get me out of there.
Yep.
You know, after a few days, and I'm like, you know, I'm just scared. I really didn't know. Like the first couple of days, I'm like, I need to get out of here and just get high, you know, and take a nap. I wasn't done. And then as I stayed there, and I'm talking to my cellie, T Money, and we're just talking about
T-Money.
Me and T
Who
Money.
was the other one? Beans?
Yeah.
Bro, you got some character.
So
bro.
T Money was
wonder
over
where
there.
T Money's at right now. T Money, you out there?
I don't know. He
Hit
wanted
us up
me,
on IG. We got.
He
a
wanted
job
me to
for
have
you.
my girl call his girl to set up the party favors. Sorry, still haven't done that for you. But anyway, I'm just like, dude, I need to get sober. I remember telling T Money, like, I think I'm gonna get sober again. He was the first person who I voiced it to, but I didn't know how. So I get out, you know, and you mentioned AA, but like we all have, you know, this internal battle. And I used to hear people say, like, I'm a grateful alcoholic. And I'd be like, how could you be a grateful alcoholic? But now I get it, because it's like, if it wasn't for that, you know, like I had no spiritual connection and no desire to have one. Like, I shunned it off. I'm too good. I know everything. And like, it's made me develop this, you know, spiritual experience. But
for the grace of, there go I.
Yep. And in hindsight, I can see how all this played out. So I had actually like got this job as a cabana host, and I had
Joe, you were a cabana boy?
Yeah.
Let's go, Joey.
Well, all the cute girls like stop working like halfway through the summer and get better jobs, and then the guys do it.
Oh.
But so I'm there and I'm like calling out, three-way calling food and beverage to like leave a voicemail like, can't make it today. So I call my boss. It's like I've been gone now like a few days, like MIA, and I had just won like an award for our training, like, and all this stuff. And I'm like, go just straight up tell him like what's going on. And he's like, you get one more shot. So they let me keep my job. And I start looking for a lawyer who can hopefully help me stay out of prison. And I'm like, and I just start going to meetings, and I just start putting one day at a time together. And I'm just scared I'm going to end up going to jail. And my only focus for like the next 9-10 months, it takes so long with the judicial system of this whole thing is like, I'm going to prison, like, for sure. Like, there's no way you can evade the police, helicopter, reckless driving, and not. But for the grace of God, I didn't end up going to prison. I got a lawyer, and I ended up getting another job at night and working these 2 jobs. And I would just work in between jobs. I would go look for a better job because I'm thinking like I'm going to get a felony. I need to hopefully I can get a better job before I get sentenced for this felony. So I'm putting on like suits and going into the highest end restaurants, and with a resume. I'm 21. I don't really have much experience, but I'm like, I need to get a fine dining waiter job. Like that's the pinnacle of success at this point, like 80 grand, 90 grand a year, which is like with the union benefits. I'm like, these are jobs like that are coveted here in Las Vegas. Yeah. And I'm like, that's step one. Like if I could do that, I don't know. So I just start going after it, and just all of a sudden I have like this confidence comes back after like 5-6 months that I can do this.
Yep.
But I'm working hard, 70 hours a week, trying to pay this lawyer off, and going to meetings, staying sober. Things end up working out. I get probation, which is pretty easy if you're doing the right thing to kind of stay on the right track. And, I got a job the week before sentencing, the job that I had before this job, which was like a fine dining waiter at Top of the World. And I got in on the extra board.
How long were you at Top of the World?
I quit last April.
So you were there for how long?
I want to say roughly 6 years.
Wow, I did not know that. I didn't know you were there for 6 years.
I was there 6 years.
So here's something. I love this kind of stuff because I love to watch the power of manifestation. Listen, it's funny because I remember when I was making 45 or 50 grand, and I thought, man, if I could just make 100 grand, life would be different. When I started on doors myself, my last year at the limo company doing sales, I made 110 grand.
Yeah.
And I can tell you I was broke. I had like 3 grand. You think like all of this money, but so what was cool about this is like you have this trajectory and you attract it to yourself. So like I got to do fine dining, and then you end up at fine dining. So this is a perfect segue into kind of doors and some of the meat and bones of the stuff that I wanted to talk to you about, which is, the transition that you went through that with your family. How much were you making your last year at Top of the World?
My best year, before like benefits or anything, take home was 87,000.
87K, and then benefits, man. That is like benefits. Are the golden handcuffs.
What am I going to do? Remember, I'd always be like, what am I going to do about like insurance? And Lee would be like, I don't have insurance. Yeah. I can pay for that shit. I'm like,
pay for it. Yeah.
What would happen if I had to spend like, that's you.
Well, it's weird because I recruit guys and they're like, I make 70 grand and I got insurance. I'm like, how much is the insurance? They're like, my work pays for it. It's $500. And I'm like,
that insurance was so expensive.
Yeah. And
if I think of like the first year and a half in solar that I wasted trying to do it part-time.
Just to get the insurance.
Just to get insurance.
Right.
Oh my God, it cost me hundreds of thousands.
Yep. So it's like you want to make $87,000 so the restaurant covers $500 in insurance, or would you rather make $400,000 and you pay the $500? But people's mindset is so fixed. And so this has been the coolest, and one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on, well, a lot of main reasons. One, you're a badass closer. You have amazing skills and you've become such a powerful human being. But, we watch these different transformations through people and what their experiences are coming onto doors. And I don't want to say that you had a fixed mindset because you didn't. I knew that you believed in something bigger than what you had currently.
Right.
But And so let me lay a little bit of foundation for what I saw.
Okay.
Because I do see people for what's actually going on.
Yeah, you kind of saw it from the beginning. So.
Yeah, you wanted doors, but you were scared. And why were you scared? What were you scared of? You had your wife Tiffany. You guys just had your daughter, so you have a young daughter, a new wife. You have a mortgage, and jumping off a cliff. You had been at Legacy, and this is when Legacy had the split with Sunder, and you went to Sunder for a couple of months. You had kind of a funky experience with solar, so I can understand why you didn't have like a massive amount of confidence in solar. To you, from where you were standing, solar looked like a freaking train wreck, like moving offices. And so, for me, especially now in my career in our office now, I don't vibe with people doing part-time at all. There's been a few situations where we let somebody do that. You came in and you did part-time, and it was really bumpy for you, probably for about the first year at least, because you were kind of part-time. You weren't all the way in. You were so worried to quit the job at the restaurant. And, I think it stunted your growth a little bit. Would you be further than you are now? I don't know. I don't judge your path, because your path has brought you here, and I'm extremely proud of where you are now as a human being. Yeah. So I want to talk about that fear and what, your call out to other people who are in different industries, who are kind of scared to come into the door-to-door industry, whether it's Bugs or Solar or Legacy or, whoever, Vivint, it doesn't matter where you're thinking about going. This is a fear. If you could go back to that, Joey. Mm-hmm. So you had the fear. What was your paradigm? Why didn't you just want to come in full boat?
Well, I think to kind of preface this is like fear is this evil and corroding thread that's through all of our lives. And like fear had been there, like when I wanted to be like a pro skateboarder, I was scared to get hurt. So I never accomplished it. Whenever I wanted to be like the best at anything, I would like be so excited about starting and then quit and go back to comfort, or pick up something new. Yep. And so, with the restaurant, like making good money, like in tips and making cash every night, it felt like a lot, and I'm single, I'm renting a room, whatever. And then next thing I get in a serious relationship.
Tiffy boo boo.
I had worked so hard, like I had got to this point. They took my license for a year. Didn't have a car. I had just bought a new Lexus LS. That thing was sick. It was my dream car. I had saved my money. I had bought a house. Like I had worked hard to get to like this place. And now I had like a nut that seemed like a lot of money, but I was like so afraid of losing it. Right.
Well, let's just break in right there, because you weren't just working for you had the financial attributes because of all the work, the more painful and serious work you had done on the inside of yourself.
Right. And so I always wanted to be in business, like I said, but somehow I had like got into this like comfort of that, and I knew I was going to be stuck there, and I figured I had to do something on the side, to build it up to be as good as where I was at. And then I would always think like, man, I'm never going to find a job where I can make this much money. Like I would have to like go to school for a 4-year degree and start over. So I'm in real estate school at like Q Real Estate online, and I'm trying to do this because I'm like, maybe I could do that on the side.
Do you currently, just segue, do you know any real estate agents that make as much money as you make right now?
No, I'm so grateful.
Not even close.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. I ended up like kind of getting like blindsided by the solar thing in the middle of real estate school, because like it's crazy to think that like if you're a real estate agent and you're holding a license and you're going to like lunches and like going to the office, like you're not selling anything. It's like me.
Knock a door, man.
Go knock a door. Go create a lead. Like there's a lot of money in real estate, and I love real estate as an investment and like as an asset. But I realized I don't have any like passion about selling houses. So I was torn. So anyway.
So what got you? What was your first lead into solar? So what was shown to you?
So Tiffany, my wife, was working with this girl at the time, and she said, I'm going to quit and go knock doors and sell solar.
Got it. Where was Tiffany working? She was a waitress?
No, her and her friend, they have showgirls out by the Bellagio fountain. Right. So they would rent costumes and go take pictures and hustle tourists.
Tiffy Boo Boo was a showgirl.
They were making that money out there. I love it. So showgirl, she said she's dating this guy who's like a manager at Legacy at the time. Shout out Chico. And Chico.
What up, Chico?
And he ended up going, like, coming over to the house, or like, and always trying to like talk to me about getting solar on the house. I'm like,
he
no,
was trying to
dude.
sell you,
He's
not
trying to
recruit
sell.
you.
Well, he was doing both.
Both, a little bit of both.
Yeah, and like, so he's like running a proposal, and like the numbers don't look good on like a PPA. I'm like, I don't get that, blah blah blah. But anyway, he convinces me to go check out correlation. I don't know how. Like, he talked me into it, but like, I remember it was like 2 weeks into my paternity leave.
He's a closer, that's all.
Yeah, but 2 weeks into my paternity leave, I got like a month off when Olivia was born.
Yeah.
And I'm like losing my mind because like paternity leave is supposed to be this bonding time with the child.
It's a nightmare.
For the father, you're like, I need to make money now. Yeah. Well, how am I going to afford this
kid?
The
woman's got all the hormones and you're not sleeping. It is.
I'm like,
babies sound romantic until you have one. Listen, they're the best thing that ever happens, but it is not.
So there's the legacy office, and it's like, he's like, here, come check out correlation. And it's like 5 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
The old legacy office was on like out on Durango near me. And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll go check it out. So I go in like this room, and it's funny because like I was wearing like a button down, like slacks, like, everybody's wearing their legacy shirts and like just chill, ready to hit the doors. And I go in and I just kind of sit in the back, and I'm like, drove my Lexus there. And I got my head all high. I'm like, man,
you're important. You're going to go show these door knockers what's up.
I'm going to be so good at this. I'm going to be the best. Like, like, well, I don't see anybody with a car like this. It was like my ego was just like, I got this, like I'm going to be the best at solar. And I hadn't even been in correlation yet. So I go in, I watch them do their thing. And I just remember being like, dang, this is cool. Because like up to this point, I had read books. Like I had made personal development like a part of my life. I had been like always wanted to like learn about assets and assets versus liabilities and like all this personal development stuff that we talk about in correlation. And like now I'm around a bunch of like young guys like and girls that are my age or around my age, and they're talking about the same stuff, and we're not in like an AA type situation where like these kids kind of got it together.
Yeah.
And they didn't go kind of the path that I wanted, or maybe some did, but we're talking about some cool stuff. And I was just kind of like hooked, like, man, this is awesome. Like,
it's the vibe.
It's the vibe. I was like, this is awesome. I want to be a part of this. And like my ego started to go down, and people were coming up and like introducing themselves and just kind of like welcoming me like we do. And they didn't even have shirts. Like now we got all these shirts and gear. I'm like, can I get like a shirt? It's so important when you're new. When you're new, you're like, I need the shirt, I need the badge, I need it all right now, and I need to be the best solar salesperson ever. It's like, you need to just go, like, just go for it. It's okay if your polo doesn't say the name for the first couple of days. Like, just the quicker you get to work,
go knock a door. Go knock a door.
So I get like onboarded. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do this on the side. And they were cool with that.
Who was Grinny in the office back then?
He had just started the same week. He was already out selling.
He did.
Yeah, so
the man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah, so these guys are like, I'm trying to get acclimated to this, and I do the whole like I'm starting and I do the online training, and I'm like, oh yeah, it takes me like a month to like of going to correlation and getting my certificate for Sunrun at that time or whatever. I'm like, I'm ready, So I got lucky, and like I had a Rhino who we ended up doing an Arcadia system for.
Oh, that's right. Rhino was with the trees.
Yeah, but
that was a heck of a deal.
That was. But Rhino was down to like sit.
Rhino was a homeowner. He wasn't in the office back then.
He was a homeowner, and he was willing to like check it out, and he like signed up for a PPA, but didn't end up working out because you saw the job. It was trees, a lot more that needed to be done. But so I was like, my first day or whatever, I was like reaching out to everybody I knew, and he was like, yeah, I'm willing to look at it. And I watched him sign this guy up, and he tells me like it was like an 18 kilowatt or something. And he tells me back then it was like 250 a kilowatt was like the max spread, and like I was going to get half. And he's like, you just made like $2,000. I was like, what?
Holy shit!
Like, I could do like a few of these, like,
a week.
I could do a few of these a week. I can just keep reaching out to everybody on my phone. I don't need to knock doors. And they're talking about knocking every day, and I'm just like,
these guys are crazy.
Yeah, and it was just
what are they talking
the
about?
standard wasn't there. There was no like structure. Like Seth.
Yeah,
I never met Seth except for one time I saw him at Correlation, but I just saw him like boom every day. He would just be like selling. Like, and I'd be like, who's this guy selling like 3 of these? And everybody else was like, maybe they do like 1 or 2 a month. Nobody really seemed that like successful. So I'm just like still working at the restaurant.
Yeah.
And like, I'm going to figure this out. And if I could do one a month, like that extra income is going to be, I could save it all and be a real estate investor and whatever, I'm just like, I'm going to do this on the side. That was it.
So this is, I was lucky when I started, honestly. So, John Taylor, so I was in the, the region was named a few different things when I was at Vivint, but my upper echelon was Bodie Gardner, Jeff Mendez, Casey Baugh, and then down from that it was Kenny Cox, John Taylor, who all have just amazing systems and processes. They're all leaders that serve, all great people, and I just learned so much. And the culture was, you got in and it was work hard. I remember when when I first started, John Taylor, so what's the job? He says, the job is you come into correlation at 10, you go out on doors till 11, and you don't leave doors till 7 or 8. And then we do that Monday through Friday. And then Saturdays we go to a coffee shop and we meet at the coffee shop at 11 o'clock, and then we knock doors till 7. And that was my schedule. It was 6 days a week. And I remember halfway through the year, Blackstone bought Vivint. And the human resources department sent a letter and email to John that told him he couldn't make us work 6 days a week because we were 1099s. And he's like, you can't work 6 days a week, but work 6 fucking days a week.
Yeah.
And I just did it. And it, the benefit to that was the culture and, getting a polo and some of this goofy stuff is important. But this is a shout out to managers. Make sure that your people have, and leaders, in offices, make sure that your people have gear. Make sure that your office is up to date. Spend some money on your office. Make them feel at home. Make them feel the vibe. Make sure that you have good onboarding processes. Making sure that you have good training processes. Make sure that your recruiting meetings set standards for guys and what they do and what the job looks like. Because, it sounds like a little bit of a rough start in the beginning there.
And, I would see all these people come in. Not to cut you off, sorry.
No, go ahead.
But I would see all these people come in, because I'm going to correlation every week. I'm like, shout out to like Steven and Justin, because they put together some like really good like mindset stuff, but I wasn't learning how to sell anything, you know, and not saying, but nobody was really taking me under my wing. The mentor I was supposed to have, he was overwhelmed. He was busy. There was no like systems and process. So it was like very easy for somebody to just like, when you come in, you need to be kind of like, given direction.
Yes.
Like, especially like if you've never done something like this before, because it's a job. And if you can't just go to work like you would a normal job by yourself, you need structure and routine, which is what I ultimately ended up, which I'm happy we have that here. We have like structure, we have routine, it's not for everybody, but it's for anybody who wants to like win at this job. We'll help you. We'll love you until you can love yourself. We'll be your boss till you can be your own boss.
Yeah.
And
like Ashton Bushwell said. So we meet, Joey DM'd me on Facebook. I guess you had heard, not to tell your story, but somebody had said, hey, if you want to do solar, you should talk to this guy, Lee. Yeah. And we actually went to an AA meeting. I'm like, you hit me up on Facebook. And I'm like, yeah, let's go so I can meet you. And that's kind of where our story started. And this is, I want to get into your first year and a half, 2 years with me, because you were, in between 2 jobs, you weren't committed. And I know that, coronavirus, this pandemic closed down the restaurant and forced you to go full throttle. But,
best thing that ever happened.
What's the difference in your experience from, because now we have a lot stricter guidelines in the office where, just really trying to avoid part-time people. I'm really a plan B guy, sucks and just burn the boats. But you have that kind of experience where you were in between. Looking back, like how much of a benefit was it when you went full throttle compared to when you were half in and half out?
Night and day, because like every night, like, okay, so I went from thinking that, I was doing really well, and I knew I was still grateful for what I had, obviously, but it would torture me. Like if I didn't go out on the doors, because like I knew that's what I was supposed to be doing. I was like studying and just engulfed in like learning about door-to-door sales. Went from like I'd never do that to being obsessed with doing it. Mm-hmm. But just so drowned in fear.
Mm.
Like I just could not get myself to go do the job. And I would just like think about it. I might go knock a few doors and then I'd have to go get ready for work. And I go to work and get off late at night and blah, blah, blah. But I'd torture myself because I'm just thinking like, I want to do this, but I was so scared to do it. And it was like, I would talk and talk and talk and go on. And like, man, it was just like, then COVID happened. And when COVID happened and they shut down in March of 2020, like all of a sudden we're at home and I had just like sold my first deal with you on accident, like 3 weeks before. Like I wasn't technically like trained. We had went on one appointment, but we had closed one. But all of a sudden I'm over and I'm showing somebody like kind of the sales cycle that you had taught me. And they were like, yeah, we want to buy it. So I'm like, call Misty. And I'm like, hey, they want it. How do I do this? And I like signed them up. And I was like, man, like I just made a sale. It was like the biggest rush. Like I closed a deal on my own and like just like built that rapport. And like, Carlos and Victor are still super happy. They've sent me referral cents, but they were like my first like sale I remember. And it was like awesome. And I just went home and I was like that rush. And I was like, yes, I want to do it. If I could just do this consistently. But COVID happened and I'm like out and I'm home for like 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, just like scared. Unemployment's not coming through for anybody. Like it's all backed up. I'm starting to go through my savings. I'm starting to like sell off like my
stuff,
my 401k, like take the CARES Act. And I'm like, man, like I know, like you were like, I remember you said, Vivint's knocking, we're knocking. And it's like May. I'm like, okay, well, there was like 5 of us.
Vivint's knocking, I'm knocking.
Yeah. Let's go. It was 5 of us. We're going to have correlation. You guys have always been like cool like that. It was like May, COVID. We're having correlation in person. Yeah. It was 5 of us,
And don't wear no masks.
Like, don't wear no masks.
Don't wear that mask.
And we're in there and you're like, all right. So pretty much here's the plan, gang. We're just going to go sell some shit because there's 5 of us, right? And we had new homeowner routes or whatever. I was just like, all right, I'm going to get a route. I'm going to do this. So I'm just like going every day. I'm just like, all right, new homeowner route. I'm supposed to be here. Like I can do this. And it like felt better than just going door to door to door. And I just like start driving new homeowner route. And I'm like a closer because there wasn't like a setter closer model yet, even though I probably would have benefited from just being a setter at this point.
You would have.
I was like dead set on like, I closed that one. I can do it. So I'm setting, and things aren't working out. I'm blowing it. Like people aren't buying because I don't know what I'm doing.
Yep.
And I get one, 2 or 3 weeks into like our first 3 weeks back. And then the next day I got another one. And then it just started happening. I'm not like killing it, but I'm like seeing I'm doing like 4 to 6 a month through like COVID. And I'm like, replaced my income that I was so scared of losing, and it became real.
So this is, my experience with you was you're a pain in the ass. You're a pain, and I loved it. You called, but the point here is that, man, how much that served you as who you are as a human being. I joke with that and I say it endearingly, but you called me and Misty so much more than almost anybody. So Misty was the same as you. I don't know if you know this, but when when she was learning to close, it was back with BSLR or Vivint Plus, and she would call Steven and Dusty. Shout out to those guys. Love those guys. She would just call, and I was still in alarms, and she would call them all the time. And man, she knew so much by the time I started solar that she could teach me. And you called so much. The reason that you've become one of the reasons that you've become such a valuable asset with not just, Legacy Las Vegas, but Legacy in total, is because of the amount of knowledge that you have in every area of the game, and you're able to transfer that data to another human being. So like forcing yourself into those situations, and then also not just being okay, being average.
Yeah.
You have this tenacity where you're like, I need to know kind of everything.
Yeah. Right? I want to know it all. Because and a lot of people, it's cool because I spent like my first 2 hours of the day today, like explaining one of our lending partners. That's super.
You know more about GoodLeap than I do.
Yeah. I'm talking about like Sonova.
Oh, Sonova. Yeah.
And I'm over on the phone, just going through the Sonova stuff. And then here at the office, going through with another rep. and they're like not getting it because it's like Chinese at 1st.
Mhm.
And I remember Misty getting frustrated with me.
Sonova's so easy to
And
use.
I was like literally like going through it like on and on. I'm like, what don't you see? And I'm like telling Mike, or I told Tiffany today, I was like, I remember when it clicked, and I told Lee, like, thank you so much for teaching me how to fish. Like, instead of just giving me a fish, you taught me how to fish.
Yeah.
Because I used your sales cycle that was like your deck, and I just had your PowerPoint in front of me and just kind of went through it till it became second nature. And I was like, man, I just want to give this away. And I remember telling you that. And now I'm at the point where I'm giving it away.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful, but at the same time, I'm like, man, this is like, but I made it a point to be like, I want to know everything about this. Like, and thank God I did, like you said, but I know it was probably a lot to deal with. I'd call you in home because I'd always just want to take care of the homeowner.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand certain things.
Yep.
So, and best practices, like you're like, just sell it, figure it out later. Misty's like super analytical. I'm super analytical.
Well, in a sense,
know?
I do like we do. The one thing we have always prided ourselves on is selling good systems,
right? And that was it.
And that, but for this is the difference: is a lot of reps get into the business and they will sell a bad system and then lie and then make up bad habits about not what they don't understand about the tax credit or what they don't understand about offset or what they don't understand about net metering, and instead of learning those, so listen. You shouldn't have to lie about anything in solar. You don't have to lie. And actually it's so bad to lie, guys, in a home to a homeowner about their home, about a 25-year product. There are explanations and ways to sell, avenues to sell every single aspect of solar. And that's what I admired about you, was that you were learning the correct ways and mechanisms to sell people good. And so that's what I want to kind of lead into now is those habits, that obsessive behavior to know everything from where I stand are the exact reason that you have such great ratios. I don't care what anybody says. So first of all, you're absolutely going to go into the hundreds on installs. So you have 112 sold, 93 installs. That 5 cancels. That means that we still have, obviously we have a pipeline right now. And I just got to give a shout out to Legacy Power Las Vegas, guys. We're doing installs in 3 weeks right now. So that's why Joey doesn't have a massive pipeline, because you sell it, we install it. But the reason that Joey has these type of sale to install to glass ratio with low cancellations is because how he's treating his homeowners, is because of his education, because he's not rushing through a sales cycle. He's not shoving solar down somebody's throat. He's educating people on how to own their own power plant and the true economics of that. So I want to get your paradigm on, Joey, why the heck do you have 112 deals with 5 cancels? Because that's amazing.
I mean, I feel like the biggest thing, it started with trying to I was so worried about messing somebody's house up, So I was like, I gotta know everything, right?
So caring about your customer.
Caring about the homeowner. So that carried over into like seeing, through probably, if I've done 200 or 300 solar systems installs since I started, then, I've been through probably 600, 700 sit downs, because I wasn't quite as good as I am now.
Yep.
And I saw, when I say this, they do that.
Yep.
When I say this, that causes confusion. When I say this, like I can overcomplicate it. So, or like I'd see like, okay, I couldn't close that one because this happened, and it was like a legitimacy thing, or not a legitimacy thing, but just something I did that caused.
Well, some form of legitimacy. Legitimacy can be legitimacy of offer, legitimacy of company, legitimacy of rep. But when we say legitimacy of offer, I tell people like that can be the legitimacy of the whole offer of solar. Sometimes people just don't. There's so many things that can happen in a close.
That's it now. If I don't do a deal today, it's because it's just not a good fit for both of us.
Yeah.
And but other than that, you're buying, or I'm not going to race to the bottom. But
Joey closes faces.
Yeah. But basically so from there, it's just like building that relationship, and not in a fake way, like in a genuine way. Like when I'm sitting with somebody and this is their family, like I really do care. I really do. I have went through the process on my own home. I have solar, so, and it was a big decision for me. I went back and forth on it, because my offset wasn't going to be great.
Yep.
But I understood it, and it's made me so much money. I think having the customer experience. If you're a homeowner and you're in solar and you don't have solar on your own home, for whatever reason, it's silly. Like
Yeah, I
you
agree.
have to experience it. It'll make you so much more like effective in explaining it. So
Yeah.
knowing that as a homeowner and as the investment and knowing how this works for real, you know, with net metering and the offset and how it works for real with their tax credit and not just saying, oh, you're going to get a tax credit, you know, if you're paying 400 in taxes throughout the year.
It
And like,
creates legitimacy when you
yeah.
know what you're talking about.
So I literally go through, you know, my sales cycle isn't super long. I'm not sitting there for hours and hours boring people.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty much 15, 20 minutes, like depending on your questions of like going through everything. But the thing is I'm really making sure like they understand the value of owning the power plant versus what they're doing right now, which is giving the power company money that's going to go nowhere and keep going up and up and up and up, right?
Well, you're selling based on, right? So Zig Ziglar says, I'm not going to give you my big stack of money for your little stack of benefits. You're just explaining the true economics of solar to each customer. But it starts to me with, and this is what I always train people on in all my offices. I tell my teams, these are mothers and brothers and fathers and sisters and grandparents. These are people, their children eat and sleep there. They will graduate from there. People will retire there. These are people's homes. Treat that home like it's your own family member. So
Yep.
I love that. So the other thing I wanted to touch on before we get off is teams. So you have, over the course of the time that we've known each other, developed into a recruiter and a trainer and a team leader. And so now you're a team leader here in the Vegas office. And I've watched you go through different struggles in that and they're the natural struggles that we all go through with it. I mean, it's learning how to, knock a door and close a deal and recruit a guy and then train the guy and then get the guy going while you're still doing your job and then taking phone calls from 15 guys and, being a counselor and teaching people maturity and teaching people how to knock and teaching people how to live. Like, this is the job that we do. So what has that experience been like for you?
It's been amazing to like really get to watch people grow. Cause like I always tried to hang back. Like last year I was what we call like the rover.
You make a lot of money as the rover.
I did make a lot of money, but I would just take, when there's setters here that are training, like we have closers going to their deals and we protect their livelihood, by closing good deals. And I'd go, there were a couple teams, and I was just kind of like the unbiased opinion. What happened was like, I became like the office therapist because they would call me when they're mad at their leader.
Joey, you are the industry therapist. Yes. Joey talks to guys from almost everywhere. And he's like, he calls me, I talk to this dude. I'm like, why are you talking to that dude? He's like, he needed advice.
So I love it. Yeah, I don't mind. It's like there's abundance. That's who you are. There's abundance. Like
there is abundance.
I'm not worried about it. So
I agree with you.
And I'm loyal. I got no price. It's like I'm here with you.
We don't worry about that.
Yeah. So it's like I can talk to people and just be like, hey, I'll share my knowledge with you. I'd rather we work together, but
that's a gift.
If you're dead set on that, I'll help you out.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of how it is. It's been organic as far as my team. Like eventually the time came where it wasn't like just be, the rover. It was time to like grow to the next level. Cause ultimately like, do I like selling solar? Yeah. Do I believe in the product? Of course. Is this the industry I think I'm going to be in like long term? 100%. Like it's the best thing ever. It's going to be the largest transfer of wealth ever because it's power and it's literally saving the planet. But do I want to be dealing with the drama of selling solar?
Because you watched other people.
And I know people want to be me. Yeah. So it would be so selfish to not go do what you've done for me and help them become me. So I can slowly, not saying your job's easy, just stepping away, but it's hard in different ways. But like, I'm just at that point where it's like the next step. I know I need to build an organization. I'm in the phase where I need to learn how to effectively lead people. Yeah. And it's been tough because, you were so patient and, loving and kind with me that sometimes I do that for like the wrong individuals. But most of the time, like I trust my intuition and I just try to like invest and serve others and, really like take the time and take the calls. And, if I can't, I don't. If we're working. But like, I just have like this patient nature because I'm like, you know what? If you would have gave up on me and fired me, like who knows where I'd be. So
Yeah. Well, we learn we learn different things. One of my digital mentors, John C. Maxwell, 21 Irrefutable Laws, talks about the 20/80, right? The 20% of the people in the office are going to be 80% of your revenue.
Yeah, that's
And the bottom
true.
80% of your people are going to be the only 20% of your revenue. The problem is so what we learn in leadership in this industry, in my opinion, is who is worth the investment when they're in the bottom 80%. Because there are a lot of people in the bottom 80% that will be in the top 20%. Because they're not they're not lacking character or morals or principles. They're just lacking skills, and they're lacking self-belief, and they're lacking maturity. And when I mean self-belief, listen, to some people, what does that mean? I don't feel safe or secure having a brand new baby and a brand new wife and a brand new house with a brand new mortgage, and I got an $80,000 a year job jumping off a cliff into solar. Is that wrong to think? No, that is not wrong to think. It's natural to think. But if you have a guy like that that's in the bottom 80% because he has that fear, it's the leader's job to help walk him through those fears and show him how he can find success in the industry.
Right.
And that's one of the things that you're learning now is how do we, and from my view, is how do we separate that person from the person who just completely lacks morals or standards or maturity or work ethic, who we can't do anything with, because if we want it more than they want it, it's not going to help. And as a leader, I give you a lot of advice, just like I get a lot of advice from above. Some of the mistakes you have to make for yourself by going through the people. And that's how we learn how to lead effectively, is by dealing with people at that scale. At scale, right? Is not one person, but 2 people, but 10 people, but 20 people. And then we start to learn human behaviors. And, one of the things that I've tried to ingrain in you, which I think you've really gotten that was ingrained with me, is you have to realize that you're a high self-worth individual, not financially, but mentally and spiritually. And what that means is that I have a gift to give to someone that is going to make them a better human being. They should be worthy of receiving that, meaning that they're going to give their energy and likeness to me for my energy to them. That's a worth investment. That's a worthwhile. But if I have somebody who's just taking my investment and my time and my love and my energy and my spirituality and everything that I can give them to educate, and they're just kind of half-assing it, and they don't really have that potential, then that's a waste of my time. And, my worth is being wasted. And so that's one of the things that I see you kind of going through.
Yeah. And I mean, we always whenever somebody starts, I never bring somebody on that I feel like isn't a good fit.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done it and I deal with it.
We all do it, Joey.
But just because I'm maybe I can help change them. But now it's I get it and I try to spend time, because you think your 20% don't need anything.
Because they're the least whiny.
Yeah, they're not whining. They're doing good.
They just go work.
These people, you need to check on your 20%.
You do.
These people are just as crazy as we are.
Yes.
And the 80% are taking up
all of your time.
And it's all maturity. And it's all just there's certain things and things going on in people's life that are just too much, you know, and they need to just, I don't know, they need to work through that season to be in a place where you can do this. Because there is, it's a challenging battle, and it's all in your head. The job's all in your head. It's
mental,
not,
spiritual.
Yep. So the biggest thing has just been trying to learn how to do that, which I feel like I get better at every day. And I feel like this momentum is building where I'm starting to be okay, I see it now. I see how this works. I'm starting to figure it out. And we're just going from there. But yeah, I know that I love my team. These guys are we're a band of brothers. It's cool. Yeah. And everybody on the team here is family, but having people that I'm specifically helping focused and working with every day, it's
it's an honor.
It's an honor. Yeah, for sure. It's not is. I don't care that they're there's really no financial gain other than I get half,
yeah, but that's,
but it's that's cool to be able to put some food on their table, and they're making a great living, and get to help them. But it's really just wanting them to become better.
Yeah.
I want them to do better than I ever did. Everybody's in different situations, and my story's not going to be like everybody else, because I don't know how to give part-time attention to somebody. So how can I have you come in and be part-time? Like, I can't, I'm working. Like, my life now is work.
Joey works. Yeah,
I do. And like, I love my family. I got a beautiful wife. My daughter's 3. Like, they're everything to me. I still am very active in recovery because that comes first. Like, I know now that nothing else is worthwhile if I'm not sober. But, I'm there. Like, if you text me, I'm pretty much going to respond right away. If you email me, I'm going to respond right away. If something in the pipeline needs to get done, I'm going to do it. It's like, I can't not. Yeah. It's like
it's work. It's the job. I think that people miss this as, at some point, I don't know, generally the point is at about $250,000, $300,000, where the money is like, the average guy we have, in a max average guy, with an expensive life is going to have $10,000 or $15,000 in bills. Most people have $5,000 or $10,000 in bills. Once you get past, you're $100,000 a year past your bills, the money is not really the motivating factor. Yeah. And people miss in our industry that, like, I'll never leave. I'll never leave the industry. I'm so in love with what we do and giving to people and watching people blossom and watching people like pop out of fixed mindsets and like realizing that it's the biggest gift. And so like that gift that I gave to you, that I watch you give to other people, it is, and I do goofy stuff on Instagram. Like I post like Darth Vader and I'm like, I know. If you're in solar and I taught you, I'm your solar father. Yeah. Well, it's true though, because, I'm the ripple in the pond of the people that I've taught and the people that they've taught and the people that they've taught. Just like I am a ripple from, John Taylor and Kenny Cox and Casey Baugh and Jeff Mendez and Bodie Gardner. Their ripple has a massive effect on, tens of thousands of human beings. And it is an honor to be able to be a stone in the pond of this industry and do what we do. And ultimately, that's the thing that you fall in love with.
Exactly. And you really have been like a great example of that. I mean, I remember you were like the closer who was just kind of like starting this whole journey, kind of sort of pretty much you were a new leader when I got with you. And like new. To watch like what you've done, it's like you've never stopped growing, and you've never been unwilling to share all that like throughout our journey together. And like, that's just the biggest thing. Like, that's the reason I've just stuck with you, like, because we became like family. And also it's just like building something that's like built on trust and built on like this loyalty. And like, I don't got to worry about like Lee trying to get over on me. He doesn't have to worry about me trying to get over on him. There's like this unspoken
the value
thing.
Of trust.
Yeah. It's just like
infinite.
And it's like, we can really like build together, and I've watched all the bad partnerships you've had that haven't worked out. And like, you don't know that like the people you're going to end up building with are just right there all along, It's beautiful.
It's been a miracle for me, man. It's 2:10 and I know you got a 2:30 appointment.
Yeah, we could keep jamming, but I gotta go. Gotta go sign some deals.
Deals
it's
above
masters,
all.
Baby.
It's masters. So I want to thank you for, when we talk about trust, what is, and trust is one of the things that I really learned. Seth has been huge for this in my life, but my wife has been massive, to have the relationship and the trust that I have with my wife. And who I've become as a trustworthy individual for my daughter, for you, for my teams, how much I trust you, how much I trust the people in my life today. There's always going to come these people who you don't know that you can't trust, and, you just have to go down that road with them. But it has been an honor up until this time to be a part of your life and to watch you go through the growth that you have gone through and the struggles. I love watching your struggles because every time you go through a struggle, I know that you're going to overcome it and you're going to be a better person. And every single time I've seen you hit a plateau with a struggle or a pain point and watched you come out on top, I have physically seen that manifest in your down chain and the people that you work for, right? Because I work for you, you work for your team, because that's what leaders do. And just watching you hit those levels and become a better person has been one of the greatest honors of my life.
Thanks, man. I mean, I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to kind of get on the platform, and I don't think I'm going to be like popping up on your Instagram reel anytime soon, but I might be.
Maybe.
That's
no,
the next.
we got one scheduled.
I don't know if I'm gonna start.
So speaking of Instagram, you're gonna be on there, Joey. You're next.
Yeah.
So guys, listen. A shout out to, because now we're gonna do some plugs.
Yeah.
Follow us on Instagram for Door2Door.insider for the Door2Door podcast. Joey, where can you get found on Instagram?
At Joey Wier. Now my last name's WIER.
Okay.
_. So Joey Wier _.
So one more time. At
Joey Wier, WIER _.
And then I am at L33 Barber. At L33 Barber. Go on and follow Joey. He's an amazing human being. If you throw him a DM and you have sales questions or any questions, and that goes for me too. I have folks that are not working for Legacy Power that I help and go through sales cycles, and we give away free information because that is the power of abundance. If you have any questions for Joey or myself, please hit us up. Joey, thanks for coming on the show, being vulnerable and sharing your story, man. I appreciate it, and I am grateful for you, brother.
All right. Thanks, man.